The room is moving. Not violently. Just a slow, barely perceptible sway that you feel in your stomach before you feel it anywhere else. Your eyes open to a ceiling you don't recognize. Wood paneling, brass fittings, a single light mounted to the wall, casting everything in a dim yellow glow that flickers slightly when the ship shifts. You sit up. The bed beneath you is narrow, but real. The sheets are rough cotton. There's a small porthole to your left, and through it, nothing but black water and black sky pressing against the glass like they're the same thing. You don't know where you are yet. Your brain is doing the thing it does in the first few seconds after waking somewhere unfamiliar, reaching for context, for a memory that explains the room. But there's nothing there. No memory of boarding, no memory of a ticket or a dock or a name on a hull. Just this room. Just this light. Just the sound of engines humming somewhere deep beneath the floor. Then the engines stop. Not gradually, all at once. The hum that you didn't even realize you'd been hearing simply ceases, and the silence it leaves behind is so complete that your ears start searching for something to replace it. You stand up. The floor tilts slightly under your feet. And then you know. You don't know how you know, but the way the silence sits, the way the floor feels, the brass fittings, the porthole, the particular quality of the cold coming through the walls. You know exactly where you are. You know exactly what that silence means.
You look at the clock mounted above the cabin door. 11:42 p.m. April 14th, 1912. The Titanic just hit the iceberg. You have approximately 2 hours before this ship is gone. For a moment, you just stand there in the middle of the cabin while that fact arranges itself inside you. 2 hours. The most famous shipwreck in human history, and you are standing inside it with 2,200 other people, and almost all of them are still asleep. The ship doesn't feel like it's sinking. That's the first thing that catches you. There's no alarm, no screaming, no sense of emergency anywhere in the air around you. The corridor outside your cabin is completely quiet. Somewhere distantly, you think you can hear voices, unhurried, confused rather than panicked. The kind of voices that belong to people who felt a shudder and got up to see what it was, and have already decided it was probably nothing. You look around the cabin. Third class. The narrow bed, the minimal furnishings, the low ceiling all confirm it. You are somewhere in the lower decks of the ship, which means two things. First, you felt the impact more directly than the passengers above you. Second, when the water comes, it comes here first. You need to move.
But here's the problem that hits you before you even reach the door. You know what's happening. You know what's coming. And you are one person on a ship with 2,200 others, and you have 2 hours. And there are not enough lifeboats for half of them. The Titanic carried 20 lifeboats, enough capacity for 1,178 people. There are 2,208 people on board. The mathematics of that are not complicated. Even if every lifeboat launched full, which they won't, more than 1,000 people are going into the water tonight. The water out there is 28 degrees Fahrenheit, 1 degree below freezing. The human body in water that cold loses consciousness in 15 to 30 minutes, stops functioning entirely shortly after. You know all of this. Nobody else on this ship does yet. You open the cabin door. The corridor is dim and narrow, lit by the same flickering yellow light as your cabin. A few doors are open. A man in his undershirt is standing in his doorway looking confused and mildly annoyed. The expression of someone whose sleep was interrupted by something that probably has a boring explanation. He glances at you. You glance back. Neither of you says anything. You start moving toward the stairs.
The ship still feels almost normal. That's what's so disorienting about these first minutes. The Titanic is 882 feet long and 46,000 tons of steel. When the iceberg struck, it didn't tear a gaping hole in the hull. It buckled and separated the steel plates along a section of the lower starboard side, opening a series of small gaps, totaling about 12 square feet. The ship is flooding, but slowly, quietly. The water rising in the lower compartments below you right now makes almost no sound that reaches the corridor you're walking through. The disaster is happening. It just doesn't look like one yet. You reach the staircase and start climbing. One of the first things you understand about the Titanic once you're inside it is how much of your survival depends on where you started. Third-class passengers were housed in the lower decks, separated from the upper decks by a series of gates and corridors designed not to keep people trapped, but which would function that way in the chaos that was coming. First-class passengers on the upper decks would reach the boat deck in minutes. Some third-class passengers would never reach it at all. You climb 2 flights, then 3. At the top of the 3rd flight, a gate is closed, but not locked. You push through it. You are now on a different ship. The corridor on the other side is carpeted. The walls are paneled in white with gold trim. The lighting is warmer, steadier. It smells different up here, like cologne and wood polish, and the faint remnant of dinner being cleared from somewhere nearby. A steward in a white jacket is moving quickly down the corridor ahead of you, his face carefully neutral, in the way of someone who has been told something alarming and instructed to appear as if he hasn't. You follow him at a distance. On the upper decks, the mood is somewhere between confusion and inconvenience. Small groups of first-class passengers have gathered in the corridors in their evening clothes, some still holding drinks from the smoking room. They speak in low voices, with the particular confidence of people who have been told their entire lives that nothing truly bad can happen to them. The ship is unsinkable. Everybody knows that. There is an explanation for the shudder, and it will arrive shortly, and until then, there is no reason to be undignified about it. You push past them toward the outer deck.
When you open the door, the cold hits you like a wall. Not wind, just cold. Still, total, absolute cold, pressing against every exposed surface of your skin simultaneously. The sky above is clear, in a way that skies almost never are. More stars than you've ever seen, burning hard and white in the black. The ocean is perfectly flat. No waves, no wind. The ship is stopped in a silence so vast it feels geological. And along the railing, a few officers are looking over the side. You look too. The ship is already listing. Barely. A fraction of a degree. Imperceptible unless you know to look for it. But the bow is sitting slightly lower than it should. The water is 3 feet closer to the railing at the front of the ship than at the back. Nobody who doesn't know what they're seeing would notice. You notice. 12:05 a.m. now. 23 minutes since the collision.
The officers on the bridge have already received the damage report from the lower decks. They already know. Captain Smith has already been told that the ship is going to sink, that it is a mathematical certainty, that there is no scenario in which the Titanic stays afloat until morning. He has been given an estimate. 2 hours, maybe less. The order to uncover the lifeboats has been given quietly. Crew members are moving across the boat deck now with the controlled urgency of people trying not to cause a stampede. Passengers watch them with mild curiosity. Someone nearby says it's probably just a precaution. Someone else agrees. You look at the lifeboats. There were 16 wooden lifeboats and 4 collapsible canvas boats. They hang in their davits along both sides of the ship. Perfectly white, perfectly maintained.
They look more than adequate until you do the arithmetic. Capacity, 1,178. Souls aboard, 2,202. The gap between those two numbers is where most of tonight is going to happen. And they are going to launch them half empty.
This is the part that history records, and people still find almost incomprehensible. Lifeboat 7, the first to launch, held a capacity of 65 people. It launched with 27. Lifeboat 1 had capacity for 40. It launched with 12. The officers loading the boats were following the protocol they had been given, women and children first. And the passengers were not rushing the boats because the ship still did not feel like it was sinking, and getting into a small wooden boat being lowered 70 feet to a dark ocean felt far more dangerous than staying on an enormous, warm, brightly lit ship that was probably fine. Nobody is running yet. That's the thing you have to understand about these first 40 minutes. Nobody is running. 12:25 a.m. The first rockets go up. You are still on the deck when it happens. A white distress rocket fires from the bridge with a sound like a cannon shot and bursts above the ship in a cascade of white stars. Then another. Then another. The sound echoes across the flat water and disappears into all that black silence. And somewhere out there in the dark, another ship sees it and does not come.
The Californian is approximately 19 miles away, stopped for the night in the ice field. Her wireless operator went to sleep at 11:30 p.m., 11 minutes before the Titanic struck the iceberg. Her officers see the rockets. They discuss what rockets fired from a stationary ship at midnight might mean. They decide to wait and see. The Carpathia, the ship that will eventually arrive, is 58 miles away. She picks up the distress call and turns immediately, pushing her engines past their limits, racing through the ice field in the dark. She is doing everything right. She will arrive at 4:10 a.m. The Titanic will be gone by 2:20. The math does not work, and there is nothing anyone can do about the math. You go back below. Not because you've given up, because the people who need to know what's happening are not on the boat deck watching rockets. They're still in their cabins, in the lower decks, feeling the floor tilt slightly and telling themselves it's nothing.
The lower corridors are different now. The tilt is more noticeable. Not dramatic, but real. A bottle left on a shelf has rolled to one end. A door hangs slightly open at an angle it wouldn't have hung an hour ago. The water is still invisible from here, still sealed behind the walls of the lower compartments, but you can feel its weight in the way the ship is sitting. You start knocking on doors. You tell people to get up. You tell them to dress warmly and go to the upper decks and get into a lifeboat now. Not when they're told to, not when it looks serious, right now. Some people look at you like you're the thing that's wrong with the situation. Some crack their doors and listen. A woman with 2 children holds your eyes for a moment, and something in your expression tells her what she needs to know, and she starts getting the children dressed before you finish talking. You keep moving.
1:15 a.m. The ship's bow is visibly lower now. The tilt has passed from barely perceptible to undeniable. In the forward lower compartments, water is rising fast enough that crew members are retreating up through the ship as it climbs. The grand staircase on the first-class side is still intact, still lit, still beautiful, its famous glass dome still catching the light. But the lights are beginning to flicker. On deck, the lifeboats are finally loading with more urgency. The crowd that gathered around them with casual curiosity an hour ago has been replaced by something harder and louder. The word is out now, not as fact, but as feeling. A collective understanding that has passed through 2,200 people simultaneously, without anyone announcing it. The ship is going down. The boats are the only way off, and there are not enough boats. The sound changes now. That's the detail that stays with you. Not the screaming, which is there, but underneath it, a deep structural groan running through the ship like a giant thing in pain. The steel is working against itself. The bow is pulling down, and the stern is beginning to rise. And the hull is experiencing stresses it was never designed to survive.
1:40 a.m. Collapsible Sea launches. There are 2 collapsible lifeboats left, and they're still lashed to the roof of the officers' quarters, and the water is now washing across the forward boat deck. You are near the stern. The back of the ship is still high, still mostly level, and around you are hundreds of people who did not get into a lifeboat. Some are holding each other. Some are sitting against the wall with their eyes closed. Some are still moving, still searching for something, some option the situation hasn't offered yet. A man is standing at the railing, looking out at the lifeboats already on the water below, too far gone to call back, just watching them get smaller. 2:05 a.m. The last lifeboat leaves the ship. There are still more than 1,500 people on board.
2:18 a.m. The lights go out. All of them. Everywhere. The ship plunges into a darkness so complete that for 1 second, the only thing that exists is sound. 1,500 voices. The groan of the hull. The ocean. Then the emergency lights flicker on, dim and orange, and you can see again. But you almost wish you couldn't. The bow is gone, fully submerged. The stern is rising. The angle is beyond anything a body is built to stand on, and around you people are holding railings, holding each other, holding anything fixed to the ship that's still above water. The sounds coming from the hull now are not groans. They are cracks, explosions of overstressed metal giving way. At 2:18 a.m., the Titanic breaks in half. The bow section, fully flooded, tears away and plunges. The stern section drops back for a moment, almost level, almost calm, and then the flooding that was slowed by the break accelerates, and the stern begins to rise again, nearly vertical. And then it goes down too. The water is 28 degrees Fahrenheit. You go into it.
The cold is not a sensation. It's an immediate, total, systemic shock that empties your lungs and stops your thoughts and reduces everything to a single wordless imperative. The lifeboats are out there somewhere in the dark. You swim toward where you think the nearest one is. Every movement takes more effort than it should. Your muscles are already losing the argument with the temperature. Around you, the water is full of people. The sound of it is something that the survivors spent the rest of their lives trying to describe and never could. Not accurately, not completely. Over 1,500 people in 28-degree water in the middle of the North Atlantic. The sound carries across the flat surface for miles. Within 15 minutes, it begins to fade. You reach something solid. A hand reaches down. You are pulled up and over the side of something wooden, and you lie there on the bottom of a half-swamped, collapsible lifeboat, and you breathe and breathe and breathe.
The Carpathia arrives at 4:10 a.m. She pulls 710 people from the water and the lifeboats. 1,496 people do not survive the night. You are wrapped in a blanket on the deck of a ship you don't recognize, heading toward New York. The sun is coming up, and the ocean is very calm and very beautiful and very cold. Someone has given you coffee. Your hands will not stop shaking enough to hold the cup properly. You think about the woman with the 2 children. You think about whether she made it to a lifeboat, or whether the doors were locked by then, or whether someone helped her through the gate. You don't know. You will never know. You knocked on one door. There were hundreds of doors. thing about surviving something that 1,496 other people didn't is that survival doesn't feel the way you expected it to. It doesn't feel like anything you have a word for. It just sits there inside your chest, heavy and permanent. The kind of thing that doesn't get lighter with time. It just becomes more familiar. The ocean behind the Carpathia is empty and flat and gives away nothing. You hold the coffee cup with both hands and watch the sun finish rising and try to get warm. You don't for a very long time.